Adams.
Hi, Robert Kerley, Kerley. I'm a resident of Schoharie County. I'd agree with what several other speakers before me said, that basically FERC is operating as a kind of rubber stamp for the oil and gas industry and for oil and gas projects. What's going on here with these meetings is really almost like what the community development and community control people would have called pandering back in the 1960s. If you look at people like Sherry Arnstein, Milton Kotler, great activists and community development people like that, they would probably define it like this, because it's basically this agency is working as a rubber stamp to do anything that the oil and gas industry wants. Couple of issues with the Constitution pipeline. I'm bothered by this idea that originally, from what I remember in media reports, that this project and the Constitution pipeline project were talked about in the pre-proposal stage a couple of years ago, and it seems like the Constitution pipeline was kind of put out as a patsy project to see if it could politically can make it through this area, and now this project has jumped in, and that's some type of a nexus there. There's some type of connection, and that's not being addressed here. I've seen the word segmentation used. Now, in a more technical sense, I think the segmentation that I see with this project is that it's trying to go into building up infrastructure for some type of what I call a Grand Eastern pipeline, which is to eventually connect up pipelines to bring the old pipeline infrastructure in what's now the Mountain East states, where they're fracking, and even older pipeline infrastructure in the southeast, to run that up into deep water ports, either in Maine or in Canada, and start getting LNG, liquefied natural gas, out. You know, it looks like this is all an export scheme here. And the entire purpose of natural gas regulation under FERC, and for decades of previous acts, has been to have a scheme to have natural gas benefit the people, the American people. And it really looks like this is not doing that, that this is basically one other part of a process to appease the oil and gas industry and to appease whatever they want to do on the international markets. I was reading some stories by Thich Nhat Hanh today, the great Buddhist leader from Vietnam, and there was a story of him speaking back in 1968 during the Vietnam War in the United States, and basically he had responded to a man criticizing him by saying something to the effect of that you have to water the roots of a tree rather than the leaves of a tree. Well, this stuff right here is all the leaves of the tree. This is nonsense. This is BS. The real root of the issue here is that we have a rotten nation, a nation that's rotten to its core. We have an economy that's been rotten to its core since 1978. And there's a few union guys here trying to keep the laborers union going, and the operating engineers and groups like that. Well, the real issue is that there's been a race to the bottom. What Robert Reich and what Bernie Sanders would call a race to the bottom, and we've been decimated since 1980, and this is all just nonsense. This idea that like this is somehow like a works progress thing or something. This isn't what this is about. This isn't about work. This is about the nation here, about the people. I guess I'll close it up with that, but I ask you to consider this and to consider the bigger issues here, that we need a full restructuring at the congressional level, probably of the Energy Department and of FERC and of many other federal systems, that to again serve the people rather than industry. Thank you.
Thank you. Is anyone else wish to complete or continue their comments? Sir.
Robert Kerley, Kerley. I'm continuing my comments. Yeah, what I was trying to finish up saying is that ultimately the Energy Department and FERC are products of Congress. They're from acts of Congress, and I believe that the Energy Department and FERC are dysfunctional, as are many other administrative agencies. And the point I was trying to make is that ultimately, I guess the reform or reshaping of departments has to come through Congress, and I certainly encourage people or the people to push Congress, push their Congress people and senators to look at these administrative agencies. And I do not see why an administrative agency cannot call for agency, rehabilitation and reform from the inside. I don't know the particulars of actual procedure or law for administrative agencies, but I don't see why there can't be a general call for a reform of FERC. And I say that because it's as I said before, it's clearly a rubber stamp for the oil and gas industry, and I don't think that can be stressed enough. And I wanted to say further that obviously environmental and health impacts are paramount to anything in the human world, but there's almost a level of obfuscation here with this obsession with the EIS, what it is a convenient command and control structure over, is that the actual system itself, the actual oil and gas regulation in the nation, is completely screwed up and dysfunctional. And it always, the comments of people like me always seem to end up kind of in that backwater area. And I don't like it. I don't like the obfuscation. I think that we should be talking about how the FERC is a shill for the oil and gas industry. And absolutely nobody wants to just come right out and say it. And that should be absolutely paramount, first thing of what's going on in this process and in all these hearings. This is a dysfunctional, backwards, regressive way of doing things that assumes pandering. It assumes that there will be this nice stuff happening here and then all projects will go through. Well, that's wrong. This stuff has to be addressed from the roots of the issues rather than from the dead branches of the issues, to use that Thich Nhat Hanh analogy that I was using earlier. Thank you.